The initial stage is two methods. That is, plow land, or minimum tillage. How to plant corn. Using several methods. The first is done by manual, with wooden tools. Traditional. The second, that is, by way of a semi-auto. Use hoe maker. And the third way is by using the automatic planter. Plants 12 days after planting. Fertilizing is done to 1. And weeding. To clear the weeds. On corn plants. Downy mildew preventative fungicide application is made, active, mancozeb, metalaxyl, carbendazim. Applied 1. Seed treatment 2. The age of the corn 10 DAP 3. Age 17 corn DAP. Downy mildew corn plants age 17 days after planting. Then done spraying fungicide applications. For virus prevention boletus. And doing weed spraying applications. With herbicides. Corn plants age 25 days after planting. The fertilizing done to 2. And weeding to plant corn. Plants age 35 days after planting. Application of the fertilizing done 3. And the systemic fungicide spraying. Prevention of fungus and rottings. Corn plants age 52 days after planting. Up to 56 days of age. Is the process of de-tasseling. Uniformity of corn plants. Is the factor that determines when his de-tasseling done thoroughly. And review of BPSB. Cob stip cutting process. It was done because the silkening couldn't get out to the ends of the cob. Silkening closed 3 centimeters at the tip cobit corn. For it to do the cutting at the ends of the cob of corn at least 5 centimeters. If not done cutting at the other end of the cob of corn, then the charging on the base of the corn is not filled. Not good grain feeling. Cob stip, Tassel emergence and pollen shed. Corn produces individual male and female flowers on the same plant. The tassel represents the male flower of the corn plant. The silk represents the female flower of the corn plant. 2. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. Technically, growth stage VT occurs when the last branch of the tassel emerges from the whorl. Portions of the tassel may be visible before the maximum leaf stage, final visible leaf color, has occurred. Plant height is nearly at its maximum at growth stage VT. Pollen shed may begin before the tassel has completely emerged from the whorl. 3. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. An individual tassel produces approximately 6,000 pollen-bearing anthers, although hybrids can vary greatly for this number. 4. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. Approximately 1,000 individual spikelets form on each tassel and each one bears 2 florets encased in 2 large glooms. Each floret contains 3 anthers. An anther and its attached filament comprise the stamen of the male flower. 5. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. As these florets mature, the elongation of the filaments helps exert the anthers from the glooms. Pollen is dispersed through pores that open at the tips of the anthers. 6. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. Pollen shed usually begins in the mid-portion of the central tassel spike and then progresses upward, downward and outward over time. Anthers typically emerge from the upper floret of the pair. 7. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. The yellow or white dust-like pollen that falls from a tassel represents millions of individual, nearly microscopic, spherical, yellowish, or whitish translucent pollen grains. 8. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. Estimates of the total number of pollen grains produced per tassel range from 2 to 25 million. Each pollen grain contains the male genetic material necessary for fertilizing the ovary of one potential kernel. 9. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. The outer membrane of a pollen grain is very thin. Once dispersed into the atmosphere, pollen grains remain viable for only a few minutes before they desiccate. Yet, with only a 15 miles per hour wind, Pollen grains can travel as far as 1/2 mile within those couple of minutes. 10. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. All of the pollen from a single anther may be released in as little as 3 minutes. All the anthers on an individual tassel may take as long as 7 days to finish shedding pollen, although the greatest volume of pollen is typically shed during the 2nd and 3rd day of anther emergence. Because of natural field variability in plant development, the whole field may take as long as 14 days to complete pollen shed. 11. Tassel emergence and pollen shed. Peak pollen shed usually occurs in mid-morning. Some research indicates that pollen shed decreases after temperature. Corn plants aged up to age 85-80 days after planting. Do male cutting. In order to plant corn, females gain maximum air circulation and avoid mixed corn males when harvesting. Corn crop can be harvested. As a reference, when things sticky corn at level 3 and 4, or moisture content 35%. Factors that can affect the harvest of corn is the weather and climate, as well as the height above the sea surface. Corn crop can be